were never really considering adopting a really young child. And so we knew that if the child is a few years old, they will have had some trauma. And we were really interested in the fact that Family Futures specializes in post-adoptive care. So we knew also with the whole process that we would be really well trained to take that on. And actually, that's absolutely the case. You know, when we finally did meet our son, we felt really well prepared. I mean, I feel and have always felt from day one that Family Futures treated us like family. We started with Family Futures before we even had adopted. You were our adopting agency, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
You know, and that's very thorough. You know, what you do at Family Futures is extremely thorough, and you really mine the depths of your soul and look at your past and have a lot of training as to what to do with the potential issues you'll have with your adopted child. And that could be a really scary experience because it's so personal, but actually Family Futures made us feel so welcome and understood that
and in a position able to share. We knew how important that sort of pre-adoption stage was. And actually, I think we'd both say that we found that therapeutic, you know, for us, actually very, very healing and prepared us incredibly well for what lay ahead. But, you know, we needed to almost go back a few steps to be able to build the sort of, you know, capabilities to take on an adopted child, and I think that Family Futures sort of held our hand very well during that time.
And I'd also say since the actual adoption, Family Futures have continued to be like a family for us, in that, you know, we can send emails or texts and, you know, we hear back and it's really good advice.
I think that kind of the art and the creative approach, as well as the sort of counselling and discussion, I think that worked very well for us, because we are definitely those kind of people and saw just how, you know, valuable that sort of tangible creative side was in regards to our therapy. You know, we had come home from each session and have, you know, cups of tea and sit around and really talk about what we'd been through in that day and what we had shared and how much closer we felt to each other. And actually everything in that build, you know, was absolutely the ingredients that ensured that we were prepped and ready for some often a complex child.
Our son loves Family Futures. You know, they've been a really positive force from before day one for him, because, you know, Family Futures went in and sort of assessed him, you know, before we had even met, so that they could prepare us, Family Futures could better prepare us for what we were about to go into. So it meant we knew some of the issues, we already had strategies in place, we already had thought about all of this, and we were already talking about a support package for after the adoption went through. So it, you know, he's seen Family Futures for years, and he really sees them as a fun, you know, he sees it as just a fun thing to do.
I think it's more than that. I think it's also family, because for him, when he was, you know, coming to his forever family, we were very much, you know, it's us and Family Futures. So for him, it's just been a very sort of organic, normal connection in regards to his happy time, his happy place. And, you know, he jumps out of the car and skips up the stairs. And I think when we were obviously early days, he could feel how excited we were also to be there, because obviously children pick up on all of that and they're very receptive to that. So he was absolutely a different child than he would be with other social workers from the other side coming in, because he was very cautious and sort of slightly you know, would be on full alert, whereas he felt very, very comfortable at Family Futures. So it's a very happy place for him.
We had a sort of, this is what you're in for, here's how we can help you.
Well, you had that once all of that had been, you know, identified, then we had that time leading up to the actual arrival day, if you will, to prepare. You know, and that was very empowering, actually.
And it also influenced our, you know, our Hello book. You know, the advice from Family Futures influenced our video and the things we showed, because we were able then to tailor those to his fears and his needs. You know, so those things made a huge impact to our son.
For his first introduction, felt like they were really speaking to me and sort of filling the gaps on the things that I need.
I don't believe he's experienced any prejudice about us being same sex. I'd say, if anything, he may have had more questions about just being adopted. You know, where's your mum? That he's spoken about a few times. But what's handy about that is we will never replace his mum. You know, we're not trying, I'm not mum, you're not mum. We're not replacing his mother. So that in some ways is good, because I think that is a challenge for some adopters.
I think we live in a different world as well, thankfully. And I think, you know, he's just hugely chuffed that he's got two dads, because he just thinks I've got an extra one than most. I think it's, and I think, you know, we, with Family Futures help and advice, you know, we do, you know, there's lots of positive conversations and permission to discuss the birth parents. So it's sort of about taking adoption as this wonderful thing. You know, he said to me the other day, you got me just in time, didn't you? And this sort of feeling that we've all just been so fortunate to find each other. So it's a lot of joy. And, you know, with that, I suppose from a child's perspective, it all becomes a bit more sort of straightforward. You know, he's not trying to navigate, you know, identity of parents and all that. He just feels very lucky, as we all do. Consistently, with all of the, you know, therapy that we've had in the post-adoptive period afterwards, you know, there's amazing you know, ability, understanding, credentials of what to look out for, what are the signs that where often we might not notice, he might be, you know, presenting in a way that becomes incredibly clear to an expert at Family Futures, that gives the opportunity for him to discuss those feelings. And it really is about meeting him in that place and saying, I can imagine how that feels. I can imagine you'll probably felt very scared. And that really equipped us to bring that same narrative, that same conversation, because it felt live, to bring it home and continue it. And I think that that opportunity to access the trauma in a very safe way, but also in a within a conversation, has been incredibly helpful for him.
Yeah, I'd say the life story work that we did with Family Futures was completely game changing, because, you know, we have found it really important not to vilify the birth parents, but then on the other hand, he really needed answers, because there were clearly reasons why he was adopted. And although that life story work, the 3 days I think we did, although they were really hard for all of us, it actually shifted something huge, because Family Futures was able to convey the seriousness of what had happened in his early childhood with the birth parents in a way we never could have. And it was also great because it didn't have to be us sharing that information. It was Family Futures, who are experts, sharing it in a way that was appropriate for a child of his young age. But it sort of helped with that, like, well, if my birth mom loved me, why doesn't she still have me? And that was a really hard conversation, and we didn't know how to handle that. And Family Futures, obviously you're experts, and you handled it so well, and it literally changed the course of our discussions around that, and kind of changed our interactions as a family from then on, because it was like, oh, this is why I had to be adopted. You know, this is why I needed, you know, it was a game changer.
adoption, irrelevant of same-sex or straight couples, it's not for everybody. I guess what I would say is that if you are in a same-sex relationship and you want children, then for us it was never an option to do surrogacy or anything else. That the children that really do need us, there are so many amazing children that, with an agency like Family Futures, you can completely change the path of their life. And that is given the right support, it's an incredibly very, very special life moment for yourself. I mean, it's sort of, for me, I feel it equally as meaningful than having my own birth child, because of the sort of sense that we all saved each other in a way. So I would say go for it. If you're in a good relationship and you're happy and you want children, then adoption and fostering are absolutely the most wonderful, joyful part of my life. So
I mean, just go for it. It might seem scary, but everything exciting is scary. And as a same-sex couple, which, I mean, certainly I wouldn't have to be in a relationship to adopt, but I think there also is an element that being a same-sex couple gives us an advantage with adopted and foster children, because we do intrinsically have a different understanding of what it is to have something slightly special about us that some people might not like, or some people might not understand. And so in some ways we're able to relate better because we've had a bit of adversity and we're not necessarily like most of the people around us in that respect. And I think it's helpful, and also I think it's going to be helpful moving forward as well.
I think so. And we live in a really different world now, but it is this really interesting time where things are evolving and the acceptance is increasing and the sort of understanding is changing. But it's also like, I feel, I agree with you, the sort of sense of most people, from a LGBTQ plus perspective, trans community, all of that have probably been through some hard times themselves. And I think there is this sort of sense of understanding and empathy that goes very deep, that actually makes you incredibly well positioned to adopt, to understand the trauma that child's been through. It's sort of, you come at it with a really sort of emotional depth. So I think that we're probably the right fit for adopting children or fostering.
And I'd also say, don't let the fact that you are part of the LGBTQ plus community stop you, because I mean, we adopted a son and we've had him now for quite a few years, and we have never really had any issues with anybody looking at, we're cool. It's not that common that same-sex couples have children in any way. It's certainly more and more common every day, and in that way we're sort of special. But certainly we don't run into any difficulties because of that. Nobody's made us feel like we shouldn't have adopted or anything like that. I think our society is really
our society is changing, but I think this sort of sense of like forever family and the sort of the rainbow family and this sort of modern family, I think when you look at the way everything is evolving, and my heart really does go out, especially at the moment, to the trans community. And I just feel there's so many amazing mothers within the trans community that are so ready, and I just think that it's almost like a duty to their own community to demonstrate that they can lead whatever life they choose, and that may well be being a parent and a mother and proceeding in that way. So it's I think it's really exciting. I think we're at a fabulous time in history for LGBTQ plus community and adoption and fostering. I think that whole environment looks like it's really, really going places, and just to sort of normalize it. you know, just to, you know, these healthy, wonderful families with loving people and great parents. And that's one of the biggest things in adoption, is we know it's about learning to love yourself. And so that's something that we've worked hard on in our life and our therapy, and we sort of share that with our child.